I'd like to welcome Karah Gonstead on the podcast today. I'm so excited to have this conversation with her. Welcome, Karah.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, will you just tell us a little bit about you and just you as a mom, yeah.
Yes. Well, I think like a lot of moms, I do wear a lot of hats, but a few of those things are in my career. My background is actually in social work, and I pursued that clinically to be able to practice psychotherapy, which is what I do at my practice called Genuine Way Family Therapy. So I can serve clients in the state of Wisconsin at my office or via telehealth, whichever works. I am a mom to a little 4-year-old boy. I am a wife. I adjunct teach at our local university here. And then I also have a non-clinical business called Intentional Growth, where I get to focus on all the non-clinical fun stuff that I love that's wrapped up in wellness. And I have a strong love to focus on all things mom conversations and just being super raw and honest about things that people normally don't like to talk about.
Okay, that's so fun. So, you have a wide range of people that you serve.
I
So,
do.
so can you tell us a little bit what you do at for the clinical practice?
Yes, absolutely. So the youngest I will work with is 4, but I really, really, truly love like the tween, teen, young adult ages. So I always say, give me like 12 to 25, and that's totally my wheelhouse. I love being able to work with people in those transition years. So whether it's just natural progression of transition to middle school or high school or college, I love identity work. So really figuring out, once I leave home, who am I without people telling me what I should be doing, or really navigating the perceived pressures that we sometimes feel within society or career. I help people if their parents are maybe going through divorce. So all those different types of transitions within those years, that's what I love to do. And particularly a huge love to focus on communication and boundaries and just more proactive mental health and well-being too. I think that's so overlooked. And I think a lot of people only reach out when they're really struggling. But I think it's so helpful to all of us if we can get that really nice foundation built to help us all throughout our life then.
So, what are some of those foundations that we should be building on?
Yeah. So I think about things like just simply knowing your core values,
Mm.
what really speaks to you and what's important to you. I think so much can be built off of that, whether it's interests, hobbies, types of people you want to be around and make relationships and connections with. What that looks like for career, right? If we're in this space that really doesn't fulfill any of our core values or our characteristics or personality traits, likely our mental health is not going to be in a great spot either if we're dreading going to work each day. So
Right.
core values, I think, is a really good one. But I certainly do think it is things like those basic communication skills, how to interact with people, have honest conversations, set and utilize healthy boundaries, because I think that's sometimes a hype word in social media, but also still completely underutilized in the most healthy of ways. Basic self-care, knowing what works for you, coping skills, grounding skills, just those really foundational things that help you navigate life as a human being.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, that's that's amazing. So, if I were to come to you, or let's say my teen, and they were just having trouble just figuring out who they are as a teen, right? So, what are some things that you would talk to them about specifically? I guess it depends on the teen, but how to help them figure out who they are and what those core values are in their life.
Yeah. And you're right. There's so many variables here. It'll be a little
Yeah.
tough for me to answer, but I'll do my best. I think when it comes to somebody coming in and just having a desire like that, I really want to navigate all those areas of what daily life looks like. So,
Mm.
what do your friendships look like right now? Do you feel like they're strong? Are they one-sided? How do you communicate with people when you're angry or frustrated? What does your emotional regulation look like? All these kind of things that help us shape our day and how we move through our day with other people, I think are core to knowing really what's going on, what's working for you, what's not working for you, and then hitting some of those red flag points to identify what could be changed in a way that's going to better serve you and your well-being. So lots of variables there.
Yeah.
But I do think too, when we're talking about core values, because especially when I'm thinking like to a middle schooler, they're probably not going to know what the heck I'm talking about if I just
Right.
said those couple words. And sometimes I will literally just put up a descriptor of personality characteristics or traits just to get them thinking, does that connect with who I am? Or do I relate to being, a bubbly person or a shy person? Like, what do I connect with? And
Mhm.
I think when we can recognize and have that awareness and own it, it almost becomes really empowering versus just having no knowledge or possibly not wanting to connect with things that just truly describe who we are.
Yeah, because we're all different, and even how we are, like you were saying, a bubbly person or a shy person, and neither is wrong or anything like that. It's just to accept who we are, and yeah, to grow from that. And we each have our own talents, so
Yes.
they can come out in different ways. So I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was thinking of how um to take time. I think a lot of, especially society now, is so busy, 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 always doing is, and even social media as kids, they're scrolling so fast. It's to take time to slow down and really just feel of who you are, and to look inside, and to be able to reflect. I know I don't do that all the time. I'm busy, 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 right? So I need to take time to slow down. For me, going out in nature really helps me on that. But
Yes, that's a great one. Yeah, and exactly what you said, just hitting those pieces of basic mindfulness too, right? It doesn't have to be a super in-depth practice, but I can even think back, it sounds strange to a lot of people when I say this, and I don't pat myself on the back, like just to put that out there. But I think people often forget, especially with younger ages, just how capable younger children are
mm-hmm.
of being able to integrate basic mindfulness practices just to help them through their daily life, just as adults do.
Yeah.
So I can share with you that when my little guy was he was 1 year old, I taught him basic and very age appropriate how to actually just take a deep breath, right? And here's when you might use that. And it was so amazing to watch him realize when he could do that and just, go through the motions of trying to utilize that for himself. And this is when, people who are, let's say they have a kid who is 4 and they come to me and they're like, well, they just don't know how to do it. Well, maybe they haven't been taught, or maybe not in an age appropriate way yet. I think kids
Mm-hmm.
they're so much more capable than we give them credit for. And so I think that can apply to any quote unquote young ages when we actually give tools and allow people to practice, they can pick up on things that are age appropriate. And then again, that's a starting foundational block for self care and coping for the rest of their life. And that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that is important. Just even taking that deep breath. And I bet I can imagine such a cute little thing for a 1 year old. Just be able to just, realize and be self-aware that way to help themselves. So that's awesome. So I
Yes.
want to go into your non-clinical then. I know you said you serve moms a lot. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do?
I would love to. Yes. So my business intentional growth, I really created this well, let me back up 1 second. So my clinical business called Genuine Way Family Therapy, I opened that almost exactly 5 years ago now. And last year, I just really, really had this deep desire to launch intentional growth, which again is my non-clinical hub. And I just wanted a place to be able to do a podcast where I could have guests come in for every episode and we could just speak so openly. And I kind of describe that in a way that is all the things that are kind of taboo that people don't want to talk about, that might be a little embarrassing, that might just get brushed under the surface. Those are the exact conversations that I have on every single episode. So we talk about really hard things. We talk about stigmatizing things from a societal view. We talk about all the things. So I wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to be able to have a hub where I could teach wellness in a non-clinical way. Some of these kind of more foundational things that don't get into trauma and not clinical, but just this almost like wellness bundle type of thinking, where I could do retreats, where I could connect with other moms. So it has been so much fun and I love it so very much. And I actually am so excited to very, very, very shortly, in 9 days, officially, I will be launching my So Much More Than Mom exclusive virtual group, which I cannot wait for. It's been a labor of love for the past 4.5 months now, to
Awesome.
create this place where it's just monthly calls. We all come together, non-judgmental, kind of how we show up on the podcast, and use my experience as a psychotherapist to be able to educate people and support people, have these genuine conversations, just build off of each other and learn in the process. So that is going to be something coming up that I just am so excited for.
That's great. And excuse me. And to mention that you have a discount for people until next week, right? To get in, they get in early.
I have, it is absolutely an introductory offer. I honestly went back and forth, like, do I even do it this low? And I decided, yes, the answer is yes. So if people sign up, that very first day is the 15th of June that you can sign up. If you want to get in on that very early pricing, the 15th through the 20th of June, you can use the code MOM29 at checkout, and that will get you into the group for $29 a month. And it will be, normal pricing is $59 a month. So it's a huge discount. So if that is something that interests you, then absolutely utilize that code, because it will only be good for those 5 days.
Okay. Great. So until June 20th.
Correct.
Okay. So to talk a little bit about, you mentioned retreats. So do you do retreats with moms then?
I do. Yes, I do. Not to completely change this, it's very in line with what you're saying. I had this very exciting moms retreat plan earlier this year, and along the lines of all things moms, and how I show up in life, I actually ended up having a ruptured ectopic pregnancy during the exact time that retreat was supposed to be. So
Wow.
unfortunately, I had to cancel that, understandably so. So I haven't
Yeah.
rescheduled retreats yet, but I will be doing those in the future. And it is certainly one of those things that's heavy in my heart to be doing. So I will be doing that, yes.
Wow. So how was that for you, your recovery? I know that
My
was
re
major. I mean, life
Yeah.
threatening. So,
Yes, it was. I had no idea that I was even pregnant because we were not trying. And
oh,
so everything came very much as a shock to me in so many ways. And yeah, so long story short, I did not know that I was just internally bleeding for 2 weeks. And
oh, wow.
thankfully went in for an appointment and had an amazing surgeon who was there during that ultrasound, who got me in right away. And I am kind of a go, go, go person. So it's really hard for me to rest.
Yeah.
But I did. I took the week off and I just relaxed and recovered. And that emotional journey was really up and down as well. I went from only knowing for 4 days that I was pregnant to bleeding, thinking I was just having a miscarriage, to finding out when I went in that this was a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. So it was a lot of information all at once,
Mm-hmm.
and a very up and down journey. But I am healed. We are good, thankfully. So all is well.
That's good. And I did your background serve you in that, and like the well-being and being around moms and that?
100%. I can't tell you how many people have asked me almost that exact question of just having the practice and the knowledge that I do in my clinical role to be able to deal with that situation so well. And I definitely think that's a huge part. I really practice what I preach. And so keeping, my self-care and knowing often the pattern of my thoughts and things like that really help to keep me on this nice path towards healing. versus having these huge highs and huge lows that I think naturally would come from something like that. So it was definitely beneficial to me in my healing journey.
That's good. So how do you help moms? Like, what are some issues that you help them with in your non-clinical practice?
Some of the things that I see, and I feel like I hear everything, even in my clinical practice, right? But if I'm thinking specifically moms in non-clinical work, there's so much. I could go so many places. I hear so much about things like mom guilt, right? Or the perceived pressures that we just feel or hear from social media, from society, from different generations of women before us. I hear lots of pressures about the how many children debate and what qualifies me as a good mom. I hear so many things. And I think more than anything, for most moms, it's the constant daily stuff that really makes them toy with this like cognitive dissonance, which is, do I do this? Do I enroll my child in this? How do I show up for them when I'm not fully feeling well? Anything that crosses our mind that makes us think, am I doing the right thing for my child? Am I helping them? And it almost makes us put ourselves naturally a little bit on the back burner and not as much as a priority in our life. So navigating that as well, making yourself a priority again, and really figuring out you. I love, as I said before, to do identity work. So when it comes to the role of wearing the mom hat or just shifting into that new role, that's where I really like to kind of get in there and work with moms at that point too.
So how would you suggest someone struggling with um not putting themselves on the back burner and helping themselves to have that self-awareness, to have their cup full so they can serve those around them?
I think, and this is where I come back, where I always say like foundational, 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 right? But I think that serves us so well in our mom roles too, where when I think about our personal self-care items, right? And I'll even use my example as a mom. When I think about this for me, I am a person, I love interacting with people, but I 1000% know that I need my alone time. That's extremely important to me. And I will feel absolutely burnt out in a day if I don't have at least a small window of time that's just for me by myself. So for me, I always try really hard. It's either in the morning or at night, but I really like it in the morning better, where I get up and I make a point to get up before my child does, where I can sit and read, where I can just go sit outside on my patio area, something where I can just be and ground myself a little bit and feel like I am getting what I need from that independent alone time before my day gets rolling. That's helpful for me. So identifying those self-care pieces is huge. And that's different for all of us. Like, that's not going to work for some other people. For me, that's what I need. The foundational element of communication, I think about this whether you are a single mom or if you have a partner, being able to verbalize to your spouse or to family friends, whoever that is, what you're really struggling with. So if it is something like just the demands of maybe it's daycare drop off or pickup, or for our kids in sports, sometimes being able to communicate and just say, I'll use my husband as example, right? But I might say to him, like, I am really burning myself out when I'm doing this thing. I know I'm much stronger when I am able to be home by myself cooking a meal, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just communicating to him, I would really appreciate if you did this and I will do this thing instead. Just figuring out what works for us, or simply being able to say, can I have, if I'm talking to maybe a family member or a friend, can you please watch my child for me for this 4 hours on this Saturday because I really need to recharge and I need time by myself. Just being able to ask for those things. I think those are two really good places to start.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And I liked your example of you saying your morning time. I'm a morning person. I like my morning time as well. But that has to start the night before, right? So not to go to bed too late, or to be prepared mentally even to keep in that routine. I think that's important, at least for me.
Yes.
Pre-prepare and make sure that that happens. Sometimes it doesn't, right? As a busy mom, other things are going on. I have teens, so getting up early and things. So
Yes.
yeah. So what other aspects? So I like how, with putting yourself forward, your wellness and things, but also how can a mom focus on taking that time, and that communication is important, but what if they're afraid to do that, or they feel like they don't want to overwhelm those people, so how would they get around that mindset of not feeling important enough?
Yes. Where some of that like almost just deeper work comes from, because you're right, there's like levels to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when those things come up, what seems to in our mom brains, what seems to work best for us to really get that concept right away is just to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, just as an awareness component. So if we use our best friend or our sister or whoever that is, and we kind of frame things the way we're thinking for ourselves in their terms, right? So if I had a sister and I was like, Jane, you do not need time for yourself. Like, if we were speaking to that person in the way that we are thinking about ourselves, like, you don't need to communicate what you need, we would probably laugh at that thought. We would
Right.
never say that to somebody else. We
Yeah.
just wouldn't do that. So I think if you can gain that awareness component in that way, that's a really good place to start, just to always keep that in the back of your mind. And I also think if you're not used to communicating and asking for what you need, it really is start small. Start so small. So maybe it is, let me think of a good example here, a realistic example. Well, maybe there's two things to do, right? So I'm thinking of like sometimes what might be our evening routine at home. And sometimes that's one person folding laundry and one person cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe frankly, I don't really want to cook tonight. And so maybe that's just me saying, honey, can we please swap tasks? Because I just don't feel like doing this right now. Just starting small, right? Where you're not really asking for more than what's already happening, but you're just utilizing the ability to start communicating and asking for what you need. I think when you can start small, and maybe it's nothing even parent related, just getting used to the routine of speaking up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that can be so, so helpful just to get a grip on things that way.
Yeah. So when you're talking about your virtual, you have any topics that come up that people are going to be able to talk about, right? And you touch on these things in a podcast. And how do you navigate that with, it not being uncomfortable for people?
I think one of the things that I am able to do well, and why I'm saying this as well, is because I get this feedback from when I teach the college students a lot, is the way that I show up and just am vulnerable myself, I think really allows for a safe space for people to be able to share and feel comfortable doing so.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I do think it's that same thing that we just talked about with communication. If you're not used to doing that, that can be really scary and really uncomfortable. And so I think when you're in an environment like that that is conducive to being open, one, that's helpful. But two, if that's kind of a scary place for you, I say the same thing, like start small that way, with what you are comfortable sharing, just slightly stepping out of your comfort zone. But I also am known to do things like random questions and start really small and little, like, what's your favorite holiday? What's your favorite color? And then ramp up to like, what are you struggling with as a mom today? Right? Where we kind of build upon getting a little bit more comfortable with being open as we go.
Yeah. And how do people feel, or what is your suggestion for moms to feel comfortable with all the different hats they're doing, to navigate through a driver, chauffeur, whatever, a cook, just a caretaker, all these things. And sometimes they're taking care of other people outside the home or whatever. How can they, I don't know the right word, handle's not the right word I'm looking for, but just navigate all that together?
I think whenever, and it sounds like an easy answer, but really it's not. And I can tell you it's not been for me even in that way. I think one of the best things we can do for ourselves is delegate when it makes sense to delegate.
Hmm.
And I think that why I say that wasn't easy even for me is I feel like I'm kind of used to wearing a lot of hats. So I sometimes almost put this pressure on myself, like, well, you're used to doing it all. Like, why can't you just keep doing it all?
Right.
And honestly, that adds added pressure, right? Like I should just be super mom all the time and superwoman. It's like, no, I'm human too. So I think when we can, if we have the financial means, if we have people around us, neighbors, family, whatever that is, when we can delegate, even if it is small, tiny things, even if it's once a month or once a week, anything, again, a ride to daycare, a ride to practice, someone offering to cook a meal for us and saying yes,
Yeah.
that would be helpful. It's anything that can just give us a little room within that. But I also encourage people to think about what hats are you wearing that you really don't enjoy wearing, or frankly, that don't serve you or your strengths. And then what can we do about those hats? Because they're just clearly not real helpful to any of us, then, not to you as a mom, probably not to your family if you're not enjoying the hat you're wearing. And then what does that look like? Again, can we communicate to someone else? Can you help me with this half the time? Can we delegate that thing out? Maybe that thing doesn't even need to be done. I think that's one thing that's a perceived pressure, right? Where it's like potentially all the dishes need to be done, all the laundry needs to be done, the house is got to be picked up every day. And I think that is a perceived pressure. That's something I had to work at as well, to recognize, first of all, my house is never perfect. So don't make me, I'm not coming off that way, but it is okay to go to bed sometimes with a kitchen full of dishes. Now, do I love that? No. But do I want to stay up late at night when I could be lounging or sleeping because I feel like I have to do that thing? I just stopped doing that. And I
Yeah.
allowed that to be okay. I don't have to wear that hat tonight and it will be okay. But it's a tough transition sometimes. And it's hard to be able to get to a place that where that feels comfortable if we're so used to not doing that.
Yeah. What I hear over and over from what you're saying is just to be open to allowing others to serve you. And as a mom, we're always serving other people, but you also need to be the recipient. And there's joy in both ends. There's joy in serving and in receiving the service. And I think people just need to not be afraid of receiving that service. Sometimes it is hard because, like we've been talking about, you don't want to put it on someone else, but just to take those small steps of what is comfortable for you and allowing yourself to receive.
Yes.
That's a big one. So
Yes. And when I think about that, you're right in the giving end, right? If I'm taking my mom's self and my current situation out of it, and let's say I have a new mom friend and I'm offering, let me come over and let me cook a meal for you and let me clean if that's helpful for you. Or let me take your baby for an afternoon so you can get some rest. I genuinely want to help you with that thing then. So
mm-hmm.
I think that that is a huge piece that us as moms, we have to listen and maybe even just take a breath before we answer, because I think a lot of us, our normal reaction is, no, I got it.
Right.
No, I can do that. I do it every day. It's okay. And it's okay to say, yes, I would appreciate that help. And it feels really good to the person offering to be able to help as well. I think we've all been in a situation like that where we offer and it feels good to be able to help somebody else, whether it's because we've been in those shoes before and we know how helpful it can be, or
mm-hmm.
we just come from a place of giving and caring and we want to help. And so let those people help.
Yeah. And I like how you were saying, just to put yourself in their perspective. And if it was your sister, you wouldn't tell her, yeah, you don't need that or whatever. And just to kind of switch, and how, yeah, that's actually serving the person that's serving you. So
Yes.
that. So is there anything else you would like to share before we close today here?
I can't think of anything in particular, but I do
Okay.
love that we were able to kind of cover those foundational items because again, I probably sound like a broken record when I get into this vibe of things, but if we can really understand all those places and elements where those things, if they were solid for us in our lives, how much they can help us in all those different hats, in friendships, in relationships, in mom life, in wife life, in all these things. it is unbelievably helpful if we can feel confident, like we have the skills and we have the ability and we have this awareness to be able to advocate for ourselves what we need. Always work on putting our well-being first, right? Because that serves us in all the ways. And yes, just be open to receiving those things like we mentioned as well. I think that that is so important.
Yeah. And something that brought to mind is when you were talking about perfection, like with the dishes or whatever. I think sometimes inviting people into our home to serve us, we're like, but my house isn't perfect, like, or whatever. And it's just, we need to be vulnerable, open ourselves up and not worry because no one's perfect, right? We're all just
Yes.
doing our best. So just
I
be,
have gotten into the point of telling my mom friends who make that comment to me, like, if, and I joke about it, right? It's very sarcastic, but I also am serious. I'm like, if you try to pick up your house as a brand new mom because I'm coming over and you think I'm going to judge your house, like, I need you to get a new friend because I love you and I would never, like, I don't want you to pick up. You don't need to be extra stressed because I'm coming over. I
right.
want to actually alleviate some stress. That's the point of me coming over to support you. So I always say, don't pick up or I'll be upset with you, right?
Right. Well, this has been wonderful, Karah. I appreciate you coming on today. Tell them where they can find you and then
Yes.
remind them about your support group coming up.
Absolutely. I think the best way to connect with me and follow me and stay in the loop with all the things happening is probably on my Instagram. So that handle is intentional growth now. You can also check out the website, which is where you would sign up for the monthly virtual So Much More Than Mom group. And that is www.intentionalgrowthnow.com. And again, that will be up and live and launched on the 15th of June. And if you want that super discounted introductory price, that code again is MOM29. You can enter that at checkout between the 15th of June and the 20th of June to get in for $29 a month.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yes, thank you. I love this conversation.